Well, with that, I know that you have a Q4 accelerator coming up, and we've talked about systems. So I imagine your system is actually helping to identify some of these things and the curves in the road and the things that people want to be able to know about and look out for. And I also know that you have a three-stage system that you have in place. Is that going to be part of the accelerator? And can you tell us a bit about your system and what you have coming up with the accelerator?
Yeah, yeah. So Launch Ignition is our accelerator for entrepreneurs. It's called launchignition.ai. And it helps entrepreneurs go from idea to income, you maybe dabbled a little bit with this idea, maybe sold some stuff to your friends and family, but,
Mhm.
it's still kind of a hobby. Or maybe it's just an idea that you wrote down somewhere, a sketch of a logo or something. It helps you to actually get this thing out into the market. And, I built this purely out of need of
Mhm.
people that wanted our agency to help them with their business, but they really weren't in a position to want to afford some of our stuff, but more importantly, they weren't set up for scale. And we've built it into it started with just a couple spreadsheets and PDFs,
Mhm.
me talking at length, and now it's a full course, is a software that helps ask you questions in order to get a true sense of your idea. And then it actually starts helping you build out some of these things. It builds out marketing materials and all these various things. And then it's also a coaching program. So you get
Nice.
one-on-one coaching along with some weekly group sessions to where you can learn various things about entrepreneurship and the mindset of an entrepreneur. So yeah, we've got a new cohort coming up at the beginning of Q4, and we're excited about it. We have our three phases, which is kind of setting the foundation of your business, building out the funnel or the sales apparatus, and then once you've built out the machine to sell it, well, you need to fuel it, right? You need to do some marketing in order to find some people that are interested. So we help take everybody through those three pieces so that they can then launch and know they're ready for the amazing growth that should ensue after.
I love it. We do similar things, but one of the things that I love about it, and one of the reasons I love having these conversations is there are a lot of crabs in a barrel kind of mentality. And what I try to convey to people is you can do similar things, but you don't do it the same way because everybody has their experiences, and their experiences are what drive them to be able to take the path that they choose to be able to educate people certain ways and things like that. So, I always find it fascinating. I love foundation because that's a big thing for me. There's a saying, how you start is how you end. So for the people that I see that jump from the business idea to, oh, I want to have a website, I'll get calls and someone's like, oh, do you help? Do you do websites? And then I ask a couple of questions and then realize you probably shouldn't be talking to somebody about a website. So my follow up question to that is, how many people have you spoken to? Because I want to tell you, like, give you a heads up. Be careful telling people what you told me because there's going to be someone that goes, yeah, I can help build the website, and then you'll have the website and then you can't figure out why you can't get any sales. So
Mhm.
I love the fact that you've not only talked about the foundation, but you're talking about the sales funnel, and sales funnel meaning really like the customer journey, like when someone gets introduced to you versus when they get up to actually investing in the business. And then one of the things that I try to explain to people is it doesn't really stop there. Like that's when it gets interesting because then they got the money and now they get to get a look behind the curtain and see if you can actually follow through on all the things that you said that you can do. So it's even more important to be able to understand the sales funnel. I know a lot of people that focus on the sale and they'll get the sale and then they have nothing in on the back end. And what I try to explain to them is in those situations, it's harder to be able to get someone to buy from you the first time. It's a lot easier to get them to buy from you once they've actually invested, as long as you're delivering on all the promises that you made. So retention has to be a big thing for people to understand. Like if you want to be sustainable, get the recurring revenue, get the retention, hold on to the people that you sold because they've already been through the process. And if you do it really well, those people turn into brand champions and are willing to tell other people
Mhm.
about your product, your service, or anything that you have. And with that, that strengthens your sales funnel, that strengthens your marketing. You may not have to do paid ads because they're the paid ads. Because really what you're doing is you're getting someone to be able to speak to the experience. As much as people may want to hear it from the person, they care more about the person that's been through the process that can explain what the process is, what they were thinking, where they were, all the rest of that. So, I love that you're putting something together that not only puts together the foundation, but it highlights. It doesn't just. It's not just about trying to get the sale. It's about trying to figure out that whole process, that whole exchange. Just like you said, you can get them on the phone, but what happens when you get them on the phone?
Mhm.
Then you have to worry
Yes.
about the next part and the next part and the next part.
It's about sustainability,
Yeah.
And I think that you hear a lot of people having bad experiences with agencies and, people who build websites. And I think that's because there's a lack of understanding that all of these things have to, work in concert. A lot of times you're going to a specialist, right? You're going to someone who does social media, or you're going to a
Mhm.
graphic designer, or you're going to a web developer. And I always liken that to a soloist, right? You're going to a person who has mastered the guitar, right? And that's great. I sit and watch a guy kind of riff on a guitar all day, right? But if you're looking for a full, rich sound, an entire experience, well, you need a
Mhm.
band, more like a symphony, right? And that is the culmination of a lot of moving parts and individual processes kind of working together and turning into one sound that can be
Mhm.
experienced all at once. And that's the issue. You go to a guy and he says, "Hey, I do videos." And you're like, "Really? Oh, man, you do all those things on like the TikTok stuff and the reels?" Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, cool. So you get all dialed up and you go do the video and then it gets edited and you're like, "That looks amazing." And then you post it and then you got 200 people that watched it
Yeah.
and, your friends and family commented and everything, but you made no
Yeah.
money.
Yeah.
Right. And you do that a few times and you're like, well, let me put a budget behind it. Well, okay,
Mhm.
a few $100s and it didn't produce anything. But where was the landing page and the funnel? Where were the follow-up emails and text message automations? They responded in your email. Did you have something to capture that and put that on your radar so that you
Yeah.
follow up, quickly? You got them on the phone. Did you actually have a sales script and a presentation? And you had that, but do you have the common objections and
Mhm.
corresponding rebuttals ready to go that make sense? They said yes. Did you have a payment portal that makes it easy for them to pay you? You didn't have to send them an invoice 3 days later and or cash at me. Do you have an actual duplicatable system to fulfill that? Right? Do you have testimonials? There's a lot of things that need to happen for your business to actually turn a profit. And
Absolutely.
you know, you will find people that do all of those things. Someone who will help you write a script and do some sales training with you, somebody who will, help you shoot a video, someone who just does cold email marketing, someone who builds out CRM systems, a person who will build your website. And you're just randomly doing all of these things, not understanding how they all work together. And it makes it so that people end up kind of chasing their tail, doing these one-off little activities that
Mhm.
they saw some guru say on YouTube that they need to focus on. And, before you know it, you're out of money. It's a year or two down the line and you haven't made much. You spent everything and you're just tired,
Yeah.
right? It requires you to, as you said, go in with a strategy, go in with a plan,
Mhm.
and making something that is thoroughly thought out and has the ability to sustain, right, over time.
Mhm.
And if you don't go into it truly understanding the full picture of what's needed, you're doomed to fail. As they say, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail, you know?
True. True. I love what you're saying. I also want to be able to add to it because I want people to understand it's not that you can't do it and have the siloed things. What happens in that situation is there are a lot of people that say, well, I'm going to go to this person for this. I'm going to go to this person for that. When I say siloed, it's not everybody is working in synergy and moving you in one direction. And I think that's what you're really describing is when you go to these different people, you have to have a certain level of expertise and understanding of what it is that you're asking them to do and be able to explain it to them so that they can understand, okay, well, I'm paying this person for this. So your role in this is to come in after they're done with this and fill in this part. And then the next part after this. So at the very least, you have to map it out. You have to have something so that you have something fully scoped out so that if you are going to go that route, either you have the expertise and you've done enough of it to be able to ask the right questions to get the right people and make sure that everybody's on the same page, or you have to find someone that does all of it and walk through what you need to be able to walk through with them so that you can map it out.
Yeah.
And then that will allow you to be able to have that level of synergy. Without it, yeah, I mean, you can get like two or three things right out of 10. And then you'll think the two or three things didn't work. It's not that the two or three things didn't work, it's that the other things didn't work in conjunction with it. So
Absolutely.
you have to understand the full process in order to really understand what's working and what's not working. And that's one of the best parts of reevaluating and making sure that you understand what it is that you're doing. I can't stress enough. I geek out on the process. I love the process. I love the process because once I figured out the process, it made it easier for me to understand where I fit in it. And no matter who I'm talking to, I can say, okay, well, if that's where you start and stop, then I can move over here. I can move over here. And that's where real expertise comes in. So to kind of bring it back full circle, there are a lot of people that I've tried to break it down is there are people with expert opinions, and then there are experts.
Mm,
And AI will give you expert opinions, but what they're
absolutely.
giving you are the opinion of the experts that they downloaded that information from, and then they regurgitate it back to you and they allow you to be able to say it. But when someone asks those follow up questions, they go, okay, well, put it into context for me, customize it to me. They can't do it. What they can give you are instructions. And
Yeah.
those instructions are if you do it exactly this way, then I can probably get you these kind of results. I think that's one of the things that I want to make sure that people understand.
Mhm.
You have to understand that level of discernment to go, if you talk to someone that says they're an expert, ask some follow-up questions to make sure that they can customize it to what you're doing. And if
Yep.
they can't customize it to what you're doing, then you are going to run into the risk of having those synergistic problems where they can get like a couple of things right, but then you have to put more onus on everybody else or on yourself to figure out how to be able to take whatever they're giving you. What's the saying? If you don't ask for what you want, you get what you're given, or
Absolutely.
some variation of it. So it's if you're going to do something where you have it broken up and you're working with different people, make sure that you understand the whole thing of what you're trying to get done so you can explain it to each person. And honestly, get them all on the same call or get the people that are connected to those parts on the same call and make sure that everybody's on the same page. Because
Mhm.
so many people, I'll talk to them and like one person, oh, I do paid ads. Are you getting any reporting telling you like where they're finding them? Because if you're paying to continue to have that conversation with paid ads to me is an introduction to an audience and telling you where to find them.
Mhm.
Once you tell me where to find them, they're clicking on I'm only getting a small percentage of the people that clicked on that ad based on that messaging. What I want to be able to do is go find them where they're at and have a deeper conversation. So instead of getting one or two people out of 100, I might get 15, I might get 20
Mhm.
because I wouldn't have had that deeper conversation with them. So
Yeah.
understand what it is that you're doing and your intention. So I love that you talked about being sustainable and putting things in place because sustainability is just another way of saying being intentional because you can forecast, you understand what you're doing, and it's rinse and repeat. Sustainability is rinse and repeat. Figure out how to be able to do it right. And then once you have it right, then figure out how to be able to make it repeatable. And if you can do that, that kind of goes back to the system that allows you to be able to sustain. And then again, if we go back to the personal life, if you tell somebody you need 6 months and you're on a plan that is actually going to take you a year, you might want to do a check in because it may not go the way that you think it's going to go. I love the fact that you're not only putting systems in place, you're explaining the sales cycle, you're bringing people through the sales funnel, you're giving them the knowledge so that whether they continue to work with you, whether they go in a different direction, no matter what it is, you're educating them in a way that allows them to be able to ask better questions. And I think that's empowerment, and there should be more of that out there.
I agree wholeheartedly.